Yes. Okay. This is chapter 12. I'm going to deliver material about substantive tests. We'll talk these procedures too in chapter 11, which is talking about test of control for audit procedures in response to assess risk. Yeah, the most important thing we would like to discuss is detection risk and designing substantive tests. The three part of material will be assessing the risk of material misstatement, the second, designing substantive tests, and developing an audit program for substantive tests. In the first one, we will discuss about step for assessing the risk of material misstatement, and the second is determining detection risk. And for the second part, we're going to talk about performing further audit procedures, comparison of tests of control and substantive tests, using information technology to support substantive tests, audit choices in the design of substantive tests, special consideration in designing substantive tests. And the last part will be the general framework for developing an audit program for substantive tests. We're also talking about this in audit practice, right? So you can just begin to the first one. Step for assessing the risk of material misstatement. Yeah, as you know, we have 2 or 3 here. First one is evaluate the type of potential misstatement that may occur. This should be defining by control environment itself. Then the second is you have to evaluate the magnitude of the potential misstatement. In bahasa, I would say dampak, right? Dampak terhadap salah saji material yang kalian tentukan di kuliah praktikum kemarin ya. Selain kalian juga mengevaluate the likelihood of potential misstatement. Ya, di situ likelihood itu kalian berikan skor 1 to 5. And it is also give the score to magnitude or dampak. Then, how to determining detection risk? We have talked about audit risk, which is composing by 3 parts of risk. First one is inherent risk, second control risk, and last one is detection risk. And if you want to know how detection risk itself, you may have to control the inherent risk and control risk, right? So when you have already know about the control activities through management assertions or management process of business, you can evaluate the detection risk. Because you already know about the inherent risk and control risk, how management perform the controls, and which part of business process have significant issue to going concern of the entities. Yeah, it may detect. It may leads to you to have information about detection risk. Then preliminary audit strategy, plan detection risk, and plan basis of audit test. There are 3 parts of this. First one is lower inherent risk and analytical procedures. You can also plan detection risk in a level moderate or high. Then if you got this one, the first one, you may plan assurance obtained from evidence regarding moderate or low inherent risk and analytical procedure using reliable data. So when you find the entities have lower inherent risk and preliminary analytical procedure in a level of moderate or high, you just need to using reliable data. If it's so, I mean that if data is available completely accurately, then there are occurrence and they have good control activities. Yeah, you may set the plan detection risk in moderate or high. The second one is a lower assessed level of control risk. Yeah, it is similar with the first one. You can set it also in moderate and high or high if the control risk assessed in lower level. But when you talk about plan assurance obtained, yeah, you may have to go with more extensive tests of controls and less extensive tests of details of transaction and balances performed at a date 1 or 2 months prior to year end. Yeah. It is like you have to go with information more clearly with test of control. I mean that it might be a qualitative data you can have on memorandum of meetings and also from wawancara gitu ya, interviewing, or you can read the permanent data ya, itu if this happens to your entities, you have to go with more extensive of test control. Now, if information are preserved clearly, yeah, you can set the extensive of test of detail of transactions in the less level, in the lower level. So you don't have to collect data too much because of they have a good control environment because of they serve us they preserve us with information about test of controls, and also balances performed at a date 1 or 2 months prior to year end. Yeah, that's called about, this is usually called subsequent event. Yeah, so when the control control environment is where it's clearly enough, then you don't have to go to test of detailed transaction too much, but you can also perform only on a subsequent event. And the third one is a primarily substantive approach. If it will happen if you plan detection risk at the low or very low level. So you have to do more tests of transaction, detail of transaction and balance performed at year end. This might be called cutoff. You have to separate or examining all of the transaction which happen in at the year of trial balance. These two will talk about. Skip this one. The next one is test of control and substantive test. You can read out the screen that the purpose of test of control and substantive test is to determine effectiveness of design and operation of internal controls. And the purpose of the substantive test itself is to determine fairness of significant financial statement assertion. Like I said beforehand, you may have a good test of control by information that preserved by clients, and you can also give the substantive test at the lower level. But vice versa, if we cannot assure that the control environment is quite enough, quite good, or it might be potential misstatement would be occur, you may set the substantive test in the higher level. The second one is the type of test control and substantive test. You may face this one by the next meeting on audit practice, because you will talk about the test of control environment, client's risk assessment system, test of information and communication system, activities, monitoring at the level of every lead schedule, in every code of account, in every cash of balance. And the third one is nature of the test measurement. It's talk about the frequency of deviation from design control. And for the substantive test, it will talk about monetary errors in transaction and balances. This like, it is more like the qualitative information and versus substantive test in quantitative measurement. The third one is applicable audit procedures. It would be inquiring, observing, inspecting, performing, and computer-assisted audit techniques. It's talk about the data mining. I mean, the data preserved by the clients will be applicable tools to auditor to assess the control environment itself. And for the substantive test, it's the same as test of controls plus analytical procedures, counting, confirming, tracing, and vouching. I think it's quite clear. The second one is the next one is the timing. Let's talk about primary interim work. And for the substantive test, would like to say it balance sheet date or 1 or 2 months prior to year end. Yeah, the timing of the audit. It is also important for auditors because they have a contract which has a limited time to finish. Yeah, the time to finish the work. So auditor have managed this very well regarding to the test of control and also substantive test. The next one is audit risk component. It is combined by control risk and detection risk. The next one, primarily file work standards. Right. Second and third, it is in we call it in SPAP or ISA, International Standard on Auditing, atau SPAP, Standar Pemeriksaan Akuntan Publik, and required by GAS. Yeah, because of this from America that they usually talk to standard by GAS rather than IFRS. Right. The next one is using IT to support substantive tests. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. First one is generalized audit software. Second, reconcile detailed audit data with the general ledger, selecting and printing audit samples, testing calculation and making computations, testing the entire populations, summarizing data and performing analysis. Yeah, this one is talk about using IT or information technology that consists of counting, performing, footing, cross-footing, and many more. And the next one is audit choices in the design of substantive tests. The first one is nature of substantive tests. It refers to the type and effectiveness of the auditing procedures to be performed. When the acceptable level of detection risk is low, the auditor must use more effective procedures. That I talked about beforehand. When auditor found that the control environment is not good enough to support the management assertion, so they can use more effective procedures. Yeah, that's called the nature of substantive tests. It is more just theory rather than practical, so you don't need to worry too much. Yeah, there are quite easy. I think you can open pages 523 if you have the handbook, or you might find the ebook. The second one is timing. As I talked to you beforehand, auditor may have to aware about the timing of audit because of the contract. and also the fee of the audit. The cost of the audit may be getting higher if auditor fail to test the design of the substantive test. The next one is the extent and staffing. Yeah, extent itself is talk about the alternative procedures that my auditor perform if the control and the detection risk cannot support the audit performing. Yeah, so auditor may extend the procedure of substantive test. Like I said beforehand, you can recalculate the account receivable that it may correlate with the third parties, which has no direct relation to the clients. The last one is the staffing. Yeah, the staffing also the key of the success of the substantive test, because of there are too many audit procedures to perform, so the auditor must be very selective to staffing this. Yeah, the next one talk about the nature of substantive tests. There are initial procedure, substantive analytical procedures, test of detail of transactions, test of detail of balances, test of detail of accounting, details of disclosures. As I talked to you, nature of substantive tests would be very it will be correlate with the inherent risk. I mean that the control environment itself, because of each entity has a different uniqueness of process business. So auditor must be aware about the nature of the substantive test by the audit lingkungan perusahaan tadi ya. Right, the second one is the timing of substantive test. There are two. The first one is the prior of balance sheet date. It will talk about interim date risk and importance of internal controls. An auditor may apply substantive tests to the details of an account at an interim date. The decision to perform the test prior to the balance sheet should be based on whether the auditor can control the added audit risk that material misstatement existing in the account at the balance sheet date will not be detected by the auditor. This risk becomes greater as the time period remaining between the date of the interim test and the balance sheet date is lengthened. So, test of substantive test prior to balance sheet date might perform at comparison of the account balances at the two dates to identify amounts of appear to be unusual and investigation of such amount. And the second one is other analytical procedures or other substantive tests of details to provide a reasonable basis for extending the interim audit conclusions to the balance sheet date. So I would say that the interim debt risk and the importance of internal controls have a similar fast phase. The second one is at the balance sheet date. There are three parts of this one. The first one is comparison of account balances. Second one is investigate unusual amounts and other analytical procedure. It also called by alternative procedures. Yeah, so the timing of substantive tests will be very beneficial to audit materials and preliminary judgment. Right. The next one is the extent of substantive tests. There are four type of samples: larger samples and the factor or the relationship to sample size, and also in the right one is the smaller samples. So if auditor found that the larger population with higher book value should result in larger sample size, yeah, they have to make the population directly on the book of value. It means that auditor need more samples to perform the substantive test, so they can recalculate the big value on the right amounts of balance. Second one talk about the more heterogeneous of the populations, the larger the sample size. Yeah, it talk about the variation of the population. And the smaller samples will talk about the more homogeneous of the population, the smaller the sample size. If I'm not mistaken, I talked to different kind of entities on 2 weeks ago. First one is about banks, and the second one about hotels, and the third one is about the hospital. It be the same hospitality with I mean that amongst hotels and hospital, but they would have a different kind of population. They may more heterogeneous in hospital rather than in hotels, right? So auditor might be perform the sample at the different level. The third one is the smaller the amount of misstatement that the auditor can tolerate, the larger the sample size. It will talk about tolerable misstatement or inverse, because the larger amount of misstatement that auditor can tolerate, the smaller the sample size. I just talked to you in audit practice, so you may have to remind this. And the last one is test of detail risk, which is the smaller amount of sampling risk should result in larger sample size. And vice versa, larger amounts of sampling risk should result in smaller sample size. Yeah, it is talk about test of details, test of details of transaction. When you're defining the section of significance of the account, yeah, you may have to test the details risk more deeply. You can say it more deeply because you have to collect the data more than usual. So auditor usually say that it is alternative procedure to extend the substantive test. The next one is the summary of relationship. Yeah. As I talked beforehand, you can try to remember this. The more maximum assessed level of inherent risk, you may have lower acceptable level of detection risk, right? And vice versa. Right. The next one is special consideration. Balance sheet and income statement accounts. Yeah, this one will talk about the model of GAS or IFRS that used to report the entity's assertion. Yeah, you can say that maybe hospital is public sector because they serve people, so it will be defined as non-governmental organization because of the special of consideration. Yeah, you may say that because it is also have own standards. Yeah, and the second one is the related party transaction. This will be the third parties, such as the son of the directors, or maybe the wife or the husband of the directors. Yeah, it could be defined to related party transaction and special consideration because they have special privilege to have different hospitality through the entities. The last one is general framework for developing an audit program for substantive tests. Yeah. The first one is nature of procedures to be performed. There are three. First, outline of the work to be done. Second, basis for coordinating, supervising, and controlling the audit. Third, a record of the work performed. Yeah. After the auditor have the list of the procedures to be performed, they have to be outline the work to be done. This one is called, maybe it is more like record the audit, record the transaction, record the evidence for working papers. And they have to addressing all assertions also. So the general framework for developing an audit program would be easily read by the users. Yeah. This kind of audit program examples, you may have a look to your book. In pages 537. Yeah. First one is the initial procedures, 1 to 2. Then test of details of balances. And then transaction class audit objectives. This is taught to audit assertion, 5 audit assertion: accuracy, completeness, accuracy, cutoff, classification. Right and obligation to audit balance, audit objectives. Then at the end you will find disclosure audit objectives. Yeah, it may have to write down by the auditor as a working paper evidence, and at the end it will be delivered to the console. I mean that in Indonesia we will talk to Kementerian Keuangan by PPACP. Yeah, it is one of mandatory procedures that auditor must perform. Right? This one about transaction class audit objectives. Let's skip this one. Yeah. Study break. Let's talk about audit procedure in Reditya. You may open your mic or you may give memo or chat in conversation. Halo guys, apakah kalian masih bisa mendengar saya?
Masih, Pak.
Masih bisa, Pak.
Right. Kalau gitu kita lanjut ke sesi tanya jawab. Silakan.